Hi, this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast, and I'm Rachel Lancaster. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife, about issues that matter, and sharing fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now is our time. My guest today is Dion Johnson, known as the Womanologist, and she works with women leaders so they can fulfill their potential. She inspires all women to step up and lead, and she's the author of Influential Women, a fresh approach to tackling inequality and leading change at work. As you'll find out, Dion is a no-nonsense tour de force. Welcome, Dion.
No nonsense tour de force. Let's see.
Oh, I reckon, well, certainly my experience of you sums that up. And we have known each other for quite a while, and we've wanted to get together on the podcast for ages, haven't we? And we haven't sort of
Yeah,
managed to do it. And here we are. So
here
it's
we
just
are.
so nice to have you here on my podcast at
Yeah.
last.
It really has been years in the making, this
It
conversation.
has, hasn't it?
So I'm delighted to be here with you, Rachel. Really, hats off to you. Great work that you're doing, and with all these wonderful women. So great.
Well, thank you. But likewise, I think that's one thing we share, isn't it? We're both full of passion that we want to change the world.
Absolutely. And we both believe it. And we both
We
believe
do.
women are going to do it. Both believe that women are going to really be a key part of that change. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, congratulations on the book. I think that's amazing and I loved it. So, I'd like to begin by asking you what it felt like when you discovered that Hay House was going to publish your book.
I was shit scared. I never at that point thought about myself as a writer. I knew that I wanted to write a book, and I'd been advised by all of my business coaches. I've always been investing in coaching for myself, my growth, my development, and every coach that I ever had always said, Dion, you should write a book. And there was all of this advice about, the book being a business strategy. So you just bang out a book, any book, it doesn't matter, just bang out a book with your name on the front, and it would be like a business card. It would like get you into rooms, it would get you invited to speak, it would do so, just bang it out. And when I sat down to try and bang out this book, it wasn't as simple as that for me. I thought, oh my God, maybe I can't do this. But when Hay House picked up the book, and when Hay House asked me to write a book for them, then it became very serious and very real. Like, I had to start thinking about myself as a writer, and I had to start thinking about what the heck this book was going to be about. And it really challenged me. I can tell you, I liken it to childbirth.
But it must have been
Yeah.
so exciting as well. I mean, to get a major publishing house
Yeah.
to pick up your first book, it just, and I remember I said first book there.
It's so funny because once I finished when I handed in the manuscript, I thought, okay, done and dusted. I'll never have to do that again. And
Ha ha
so
ha.
here we are. Like, I think we're probably a couple of years. Let me see, 2020. Yeah, 2020. Yeah, so we're nearly a couple of years since I handed in the final manuscript, and I'm already. I feel like I'm pregnant with another book, which is ludicrous. Like, it's so strange that the book juices are now going again. It's really powerful, the process of writing. I know that you
Yeah.
found this with yours too. It's such a powerful process because if you're born like me to bring a message to the world, to do really big things, then sometimes inside of me, the message is like a sentence. It's really clear. But when you want to try and influence other people, and you want to share your message, and you want to get it out there, and you want it to make sense to other people, it's not quite as simple as just saying what you think it is. Like, yeah, you've got to dissect it. You've got to put it into logical sequences. You've got to try and make it simple for people to grasp. And that is what's so challenging about writing the book. But the pro of that is that once you do all that wrestling to get it into a book format, your understanding of what it is that you're here to say completely
Yes.
transforms. That your
Yes, it does.
understanding of the message, your understanding of what you see and how you want to say it, and your way of saying it, and how to make it make sense to other people. You kind of get to see it from all different angles when you write a book, and then you see it grows. Like when you start to get that level of clarity around it, now it grows, and the potential for it grows, and everything starts to, so now, yeah, 2 years in, and I'm thinking, oh God, here comes another book.
So is that one has the process started for the next one?
Well, the process has started on the inside, so I
Good,
can see,
good,
I can
good,
feel
good.
it bubbling up in there, and there are so many angles. I haven't even got a working title yet, but there are so many angles and so many things that I just want to clarify as a
Mm,
result of writing the first book.
mm.
Mm.
So why the first book? Why this book?
Should I tell you something? I really need to tell you that it isn't actually my first book. So I wrote a book in the early noughties. It was called Fed Up of Being Fed Up at Work. And I printed off 300 copies of that book. I self-published, and I did get rid of I did sell the 300 books, but over years, and I didn't make a fuss about it. And I think that what happened was I wasn't at the place where I was living my message when I wrote that first book. So I was still really hiding. I was still really playing small. I still really hadn't cottoned on to the fact that my voice matters and that what I have to say is important. I felt the compulsion to write the book. So all these business coaches telling me to bang a book out, but I didn't believe in myself.
Mm.
And that's why people are referring to Influential Woman as my first book, because now, now I'm really owning my voice, owning my message, owning that I've got something important to say, and running with it. Like everyone, I say, "Hey, I've written a book. Hey, have you read my book? Hey, buy my book." I believe in that I'm here to make a difference, So I mean, I often think about the difference between me when I wrote that first book and me now. The reason that Influential Woman came was more because I had I'm a woman myself. I'm a midlife woman. I was working with women, and I care about the world. So all of those things all came together because my experience of being somebody who wants to change the world is that I haven't always felt really confident about using my voice and sharing my ideas in the places where real change happens, where systems get shaken and changed. And now I work with women in my coaching business who are really high level women, CEOs, they're directors and their heads, and they're positioned to make a difference, but they experience the same kind of playing small, being conformist, or hiding, wearing masks, and just not really walking in their power in leadership. And I saw that, I experienced it myself, and I see it in my clients, and I care about the world because the world is groaning for a new type of system in the marketplace that doesn't
Oh, yes.
that doesn't exclude people, that doesn't favor some and then really discredit others. I'm like you, want in a world where we kind of all have a fair whip at living our best lives, being healthy, having access to great services and healthcare and well-being, and being able to make our best contribution. I want all of us to have access to that. And at the moment, it's not that way. And I think that the marketplace is a really great platform for driving that change. So it matters who's there, it matters who's leading there, it matters how they're showing up. And I know that a lot of us who are in that place aren't showing up in our power. And so I want to do something about that. And that's why I wrote the book.
And I think as well that it's not just that you found your message, but you found who you are, and you are showing up as you,
Yeah,
and you are living exactly what you want other women to do. So I'm just going to just tell my listeners, so you describe yourself as a woman in a man's world, a black woman in a white man's world, a Christian in a secular world, and a facially different woman in a beauty conscious world.
yeah,
So those are all of the layers, and well, there's many more layers, I'm
yeah,
sure, but those are the big full frontal layers to you, Dion. And this book is just all of that. And you know, there have been bits. You talk about the masks, and I'm going to get you to talk about the first mask and taking off the first mask.
yeah,
But you have, in your past, you've had to wear these masks, and
yeah.
they have all come off, and now you are gloriously you and writing this amazing book.
Wow,
So
it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
yeah, yeah, but I think that's what makes you so powerful, and it's just that authenticity, and that's because you and I, you know, I'm not a Christian, and you
Yeah,
know that I kind of struggle with it a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
And what I love in the book, and on your web and in all your communications, you say, "Look, you know, I might quote you a Bible passage, but deal with it. It's okay."
yeah,
Right, and I love that. I
yeah.
just love it.
I think there's a lot being said about authenticity right now. Authentic leadership is like a buzzword, but I don't think we really understand what it means. I don't think we really
Mhm.
understand the cost of authenticity. So, for
Yeah.
starters, I think that we think that authenticity just means like just being honest about how you feel. So, just giving people a piece of your mind, just letting it all hang out. And sometimes I think we think authenticity is this like this really curious world of oversharing. Like I've got red pants or like I this is my favorite sexual position. Like, it's not like I think it's neither of those. I like to say authenticity is being the you that you were created to be, and I think that takes responsibility. I think it takes responsibility because I think of us all, whether we have a faith or not, are here to express love, are here to become more and more of ourselves, are here to make our unique difference, to bring our unique selves. And I don't think we always know what that means. I certainly didn't. And so when I was growing up, can I tell a bit of my story about
Oh,
growing up?
yes, please do, please do, yes. I want it all because, you know, you will be new to my listeners, you know, I know about you, and I
Yeah,
know how amazing you are, so yes, start
yeah.
wherever you like and tell us as much as you like.
So I was born with a facial disfigurement. So when I was in my mother's womb, I didn't develop conventionally. My lower face was open, it was gaping, and my head was asymmetrical. So I had quite a pronounced facial disfigurement, and I needed, from about the age of 3 months into my adulthood, I spent a lot of time having corrective surgery. And as part of that corrective process, when I was 4 years old, I was gifted this artificial eye, which was this plastic white shell that fit over my disfigured eye, just sort of sat on top, and it was painted to look like my other eye and my seeing eye. And then I was given these dark glasses, these great big like Ilda Hogden, I think, no, Deirdre Barlow or whatever glasses, really, really big and really, really dark. And the whole point, I mean, I call those the beginning of my life behind the mask. I know that they were given to me in love, and the whole point of their gifting was that I should look more normal, that I should hide my facial flaws, that I should blend in. And that was really what I learned. I learned subconsciously for most of my life that the things about me that aren't right should be hidden. The things about me that aren't normal or look like yours or like most people's, that I should put those things away and not let anybody see them. And like I said, I call it the beginning of my life behind the mask, because I learned to hide. And I didn't realize until in my adulthood that I didn't just learn to hide my face, I learned to hide me on so many levels, and just but really unconsciously. So I was still doing life, I still went to university, I still graduated, I still went into healthcare, I still became a midwife, I still had boyfriends, and still made a baby, I still just I did all these things, but I didn't realize that I was hiding. Didn't realize that. I mean, I was hiding my face first and foremost, but I was hiding on so many other levels as well. And then I got to this place, like we do sometimes in our life. It was my 2009, a time of true crisis globally, a bit like now. So it was, the world was in economic crisis, and there was so much going on, bad and good. Like, the black man moved into the White House. And, at one point it looked like it was either going to be Hillary Clinton, a woman president, or a black man president. Like, it was like nuts, unspeakable, unthinkable things were possible now and happening. And at the same time, there was all this talk about, the rich getting richer and the poor going through a season of deep darkness because of the financial, we were going to be the cast out ones, we were going to be the rock bottom ones. And I looked and saw where I fit in that, and just thought, my God, like, what is it about these people who are like the stars? We're talking about Michael Jackson died that year too. So we were talking about how is godlikeness in the entertainment world. So it was Michael Jackson, Hillary Clinton, Obama, and all these people who had all this high possibility, these great superstars. And then there was this talk about all the rest of us who were doomed because of the economic crisis. And that bothered me so much. It bothered me so much, Rachel. Like, I just didn't want to be in the other group, because inside of me, I just felt like, I feel like I want to change the world. I feel like I'm here to do something significant. I feel like I'm supposed to be, making a difference, making my mark. I want to. And yet, when I looked at my life, even though it was all right, like pretty impressive, I was doing all the right things, I had a career. People said, that Dion, she's a high flyer, she's confident, she's this, she's that, and the other. But inside I just knew like there was more for me to be, and it looked like I belonged to this other group. And so there was discontent. I was really discontented around this. I didn't know how to unlock me. I felt like I wanted to unlock me. It felt like I had my foot on the gas and my foot on the brake simultaneously. Like I couldn't quite get my life to power the way I wanted it to. And then my aunt died, and I went through this week of what I call week from hell, where just this boy, just out of the blue, called me ugly. And his words really hurt. This young boy, he was about 10, called me ugly in a really public way. And I just felt so hurt by his words. It felt like someone had punched me in the heart. And then the very next day, some other kids ran up behind me, complete strangers ran up behind me, pointed at my face, and laughed their heads off, and then ran off. And it was like that, pow, again in the same place. Like, they were pointing at my face, they were calling me ugly, they were looking at me and pointing out my difference. And remember, like, I spent my life trying to blend in. So all of this pointing at my face and in a painful way was really, really sore. By the end of that week, I mean, every single day that week, something else came, something else happened. Every single day that week. I mean, I just thought it was a week from hell. But isn't it funny, Rachel, how when it's time for you to deal with something, it's like
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, it's like something is like it just gets hit.
Smacking you in the face.
just can't get away from it. I'm just so grateful for that, because what that did for me was it brought me to my knees at the end of that week with my hands up in the air saying, God, like something's hurting. Something's hurting. What is this stuff about my face? Why did that boy call me ugly? Why is it hurting so much? And so it kind of opened up a conversation. I like to say a conversation with God. You might say a conversation with the universe or my higher self. I don't care what you say. But I had this deep and meaningful conversation, and in this still small voice on the inside of me that I know that we can all relate to as women, this still small voice that if we give it chance, it speaks to us. And this voice said to me, why are you hiding anyway? When are you gonna show up for real? When are you gonna let people see the real you, Dion? What if your discontent was happening because you're hiding, because you're not showing people who you really are, because you're not showing up for real? When are you going to show up for real? I thought these questions were stupid. I thought they were ludicrous, because because at that time we were talking about my face, and I just wondered, like, how the heck should I show up then? Like, how could I show up without my mask? I didn't call it mask at the time, but I just thought it was just such a stupid notion that I would let people see my real face. It felt like it wouldn't be right to let people see, look how different I am. Look how not normal I am. Like, they wouldn't be, look how ugly I am. I wouldn't. I didn't even know that I was feeling like that about myself, but realized in that moment that over the years I had been realizing that all that makes me different, I had been thinking about as needing to be hidden, needing to be put away, needing to not to be held back from public eyes and public view. Like, and that is how I live my life, and that's what I realized in that moment, and put my hands up in the air like this, crying out, going, I need to find a way to show up for real. I need to find a way to let people see. I was talking about my face at the time, but very quickly in the journey, after making that decision that I was going to show up for real, very, very fast, I started to realize that actually it's not nothing to do with my face. It wasn't just my face. It was me, or like me with a capital M. Like, I just had lost touch with who she was, because so much of her was, I thought, unacceptable, not right for public consumption, too much this and too much that. And so, or not enough this and not enough that I just put her away on so many levels. And I could see, like, in that moment, I could see how it was all making sense. Some of the issues that I'd been having in my life, some of the ways that I'd been feeling like this powerhouse on the inside, struggling to show up as her on the outside. I could just see how all this hiding, masking dynamic was working out in my life. And I just decided that enough, I was going to find a way to let people see the real me. And it was we could probably talk about the journey of walking out, letting people see me. For some people, for the first time, some people who had known me for years, were now seeing me naked, as I like to call it. And it was such an ordeal, but the best thing that I've ever done. And then what happened is that over the years, I started to people started asking me about my different appearance, and and what was driving me. And I began to understand that actually I'd been on this incredible journey of learning to show up for real. And then women from around the world started telling me, I get it. I haven't got a face like yours. Maybe I'm not a black woman. Maybe I'm not disfigured. But I get what it is to be hiding parts of myself. I really get what it is to not be showing up fully. I really get what it is to be playing small, punching below my weight, trying to meet other people's expectations over here, trying to blend in over there, trying to look normal over here. Just it's so onerous. It's so energetically expensive to be trying to manage what people see of you all the time, even if it's happening unconsciously. And so, yeah, I learned to show up for real and love myself. How about that? love myself, love the fact that I am who I am, loved the idea of getting to know myself and dare to bring her to my work, to my relationships, to my home life, to my parenting, to everything. Learn to bring her to my life. And it's been a journey. I'm still on the journey. I've been thinking just recently, just even in the last week, I've been thinking about it's about time I learned how to bring her to intimate relationships with a man. I've not done that yet. So I'm looking forward to that. It's an ongoing journey, it's still evolving. But I am passionate about helping women to bring our truest selves to the boardroom where conversations are happening that are changing our world, to the C-suite where policy is being written and where right and wrong is being deciphered, where priorities are being set, where our world and culture is being shaped and set. Like, I think that if we can learn to show up with healed hearts and clear minds and a powerful conviction about what we truly think and what we truly believe in those spaces, then our world can't stay the same.
Whew, my goodness. Tour de force. Yeah, I was right. Won it, won it, won it, won it. Wow, you're amazing. You're amazing. I don't know I don't know where to go now. I've got teary eyes.
I really believe in this work.
I know you do. I know you do. And
Yeah.
that is so powerful. And that makes you powerful. And I love what you do, and I love what you're doing, and I love the way you are changing the world, and you're doing it as your authentic self. Yeah, I'm a bit gobsmacked now. I'm just like, whoa, that is Dion.
But
That is
it's not
her.
it's not just Dion. I think that's the message, is that it's not just me. Do you know that I was a midwife for a long time? And honestly, I could tell you that back there is where I could see that was my time of life where I was learning about the power of womanity, about the power of women. I really saw it there. It was my school for the work that I'm doing now with women. You can't tell me that you're not powerful. You can't tell me that you don't that you're not innately potent, because I know I saw it. I saw womanity in her rawest sense in the whole pregnancy and labor place. Like, I know that that's just one expression of the power. That you don't have to be pregnant or having a baby to express that power. That power is within us, and the world has need of that power. Like, the world has need of that innate wisdom, that expression of deep love, crazy, nonsensical love, capacity for love. Like, that is womanity, and we need her now. In anywhere that any of your listeners are, she's needed.
Oh yeah,
Anywhere that we
yeah.
show up, she's needed.
And
Yeah,
I think you know, obviously that the ability to lead, I think it grows as we age.
yeah,
So that as we come into midlife, and I'm sure that many of the women you're working with, they must be older women because they've, reached the C-suite, they've reached the boardroom. And yet there is this issue that, obviously the women you're working with, they're already there and they've got their own issues. But then there's other women who aren't in that position and then, maybe step back because they've bought into the negative narratives about getting older. So
yeah,
if we can just harness both of those.
yeah. I think it's about starting where we're at. So, like you said, I work with women who are already in the room. My theory is that a lot of the bullshit that keeps getting churned over year after year in the boardroom and the C-suite is happening because people who are disgruntled about it don't feel confident enough to speak up about it. People who have different ideas about how things can be different don't offer those solutions. That they're too far out, they go against the grain. So that's why I am positioned where I am. But it's not lost on me that women are everywhere. that we're in the home, that we're in communities, we're in, you know, we're all over, we're at every level, we're in every place, and everywhere that we are, that's where we start with this. We learn how to show it for real. I like to say, start where the pain is. You know, if you're in a relationship and you know you're not showing up, you're not speaking up, you're not shaking things up the way that you think of on the inside. If you're one of those that you know, constantly says what's wrong with your friends, but then you go and you just let it keep going on, like that is a sign that you're not showing up for real. And that can be happening in your intimate relationships, in your friendships, in your work and professional relationships, wherever it's happening. We've got to get good at starting where it's happening and learning how to show up for real in each and every relationship. And that means, like, I know that as your women are listening to this, that there's for some of them, there's this hunch happening. Oh yeah, like they're, oh, that's where the pain is, or that's where I'm not showing up for real, or yeah, I've never really been myself in this relationship, or I've never really revealed that about me, or you know, we stunt our own growth and we stunt our own power. And when we do that, we just get so disconnected from it. But we're really needing to step into it again now. I feel like I'm chatting a lot.
You're supposed to. You're my guest. That's what you're supposed to do. So, how do you help women step into their power? How do you help them take off their masks?
Yeah. So, you know, it's easier now because I honestly don't know that we know that we're wearing masks. So, going back to my story, when I was on the floor there with my hands up in the air, having a conversation with God about why don't I show up for real, like I didn't, like, those questions didn't make sense to me straight away. Like, I didn't know that I wasn't showing up for real. And I certainly didn't know the logic behind my hiding and my masking. I really didn't know. But what happened was, in the questioning, in that conversation, what happened was I had to dig for answers. So that's the first thing, is the answers to the way out are always deeper than the superficial. And I feel like we have to give ourselves some space. You know, like, I know that you provide space for women to have deep and meaningful conversations, but most women aren't having these spaces where they're encouraged to just go beneath the surface a little bit and just dig for the truth, their truth, you know, their answers, what they really like, what they really want, what they really desire, who they really are. Most women can't answer those questions, or so just providing the platform where people are encouraged to be honest and dig for the truth. That's very powerful. I think that starting with the pain is a very powerful place too. So if you have a relationship that's hurting, or if you've got a hunch that something needs to be different, like, you know, um, I work with women in the professional space, and I can't tell you the number of women who say we're going the wrong way. The organization is going the wrong way. I know it. You know, it's not fair, but they get caught up in the power struggles and all this one-upmanship game, and it all gets tangled up. I say, but if you've got this hunch that something is not working, it is always the place to start, because it's always the invitation that's saying, hey, show up more authentically here. Hey, bring your truth here. Hey, speak up here. Hey, show yourself here. Reveal your truest thoughts here. Be vulnerable here. And so, looking for where there's pain, or where there's dis-ease, or where there's aching, is always a very powerful place to start. That's a given when they come to me, because they've come because, you know, they don't like their boss, or they're struggling with their workload, or they want to make a difference in a big giant problem. And so the problem's already there, and then that's how we can begin to peel the layers back. And then I like to say my medicine is conversation. You know, most people have very shallow conversations going on in their heads and very shallow conversations going on with the people in their lives. And so being daring enough to challenge yourself as to why you're feeling this way, or why you're doing things like that, or where did that start. These kind of conversations really do open us up to seeing in a very personal way where we are not showing up for real, so that we can make the decision that now is the time that I want to learn what showing up for real means. I remember being with a coach, my own coach, and realizing that I need to show up for real on a different level, and not know what that means. Just that I remember the tears, hot tears streaming down my face, because she was asking me, what are you like? What do you want? You know, what's your favorite color? What is it that you like? And I really had become so disconnected and so weary trying to be everything to everybody else, that I kind of lost touch with me. And so it's work. And I provide spaces where people can have conversations at different levels, about what the problem is that they're experiencing, what the vision is about what they want to bring about, and how they can begin to do that authentically.
And in the book, you talk about women becoming a queen influencer. And you
Yeah,
talk about there are 7 habits that we need to be able to cultivate so
yeah.
that we can get closer to becoming a queen influencer. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so when I was writing the book, I had this was before pandemic time, right? This was before George Floyd book.
Mm.
So I was writing it before, and like I said, I was just trying to bang out a book, but I knew a deeper message was trying to come through. So what it started to transpire to was tackling inequality. It started to become a message about our world. People are crying, people are dying, people are suffering in our world, and the marketplace is a real driver of that pain. And so it
Oh, yeah.
really
Oh, yeah.
it really matters what's happening there. And so I at first I didn't feel qualified. I'm not a social scientist, I'm not a sociologist. I didn't feel qualified to write about inequality. But it was more and more, it was becoming about that, and it was becoming about the need for systemic change. It was becoming about that, and I didn't feel qualified for a long time. But then, I went away on a writer's retreat, and I just locked myself away in this beautiful little quaint cottage. And, I love to say the thread count was high and the birds singing was beautiful. And, it was just nice. It was just a real quaint little place where I could just go and hang out and really gather my thoughts around the book. And I was, really wrestling with it. And then the idea came to me. Like, I knew it was about systems change. And then one morning I woke up and there was this message just waiting for me, saying that the system was like a king. The system that needs to be changed is like a unreasonable king, and the king, or this system, is really oppressive. And this system, or this king, is his subjects are not happy. They're depressed, they're suppressed, they're not fully expressed. They're not well under the leadership and the reign of this king. And then I heard in this still small voice that this king, the key to the changing of this king, was his queen. And that this queen were the women who were very, like, if you think about a king and a queen, or a man and a woman, I don't know if that's politically correct, but you'll if you think about the queen to the king, like, she's in his chamber, she's close to him, she's got his ear, she's got his heart, she can speak to him, she can cause this king to change. Well, I began to see this vision that these women who were in senior leadership, these women who had leadership, who were part of the king, next to the king, close to the king, and his head, his thinking, his mind, which is senior leadership, like, these women needed to see themselves as the queen that could influence the king, the system, as the voice that really would carry sway, had clout with the king. And I knew there, right there, that was what I was being called to do: help these women to understand that they were being called to find their throne. In other words, find their sovereignty, find their authority, find their identity as ones who would rule and reign alongside the systems, alongside this king, and create different outcomes for the people. And so, yeah, that vision became very, very real for me. I knew that it was, I received it and got pregnant with it, and it was just so compelling for me that that's what I wrote about in the book. And of course, the book went on to say, if you buy into that, if you're curious about what that would mean for you, then I suggest you start by looking at your habits, and that's how I presented the 7 habits of the book.
Are you going to tell us a little bit about what they are?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Give us a couple to
Yeah.
tantalize people.
Well, first of all, I don't know which ones. I'm going to just look to see which one comes up first. Well, the one that I opened up at is repowering our womanity. So this came out of when I was writing the book. I realized that I was always called to work with women, and then I spent some time as a midwife, working with women. And I've always done in my private business work, coaching work. I've always worked with women, and I noticed that there's a huge confusion about what it really means to be a woman, especially now when we've got this talk about androgyny rules, like gender's not real. There's such an attack on gender right now that
Mm,
there's just such confusion about what it means to be a woman. And if you're not careful, you'd think it was something to do with our body size, or how high our voice is, or you think it was about it's about sex, like we've got vaginas. It's there's such confusion about what womanity is and why womanity distinctly matters. And so in the book, I talk about, us making our own inquiry around that, about what it means to you to be a woman, and what's the distinguishing features of what it means to be a woman. Because most people don't think about that. And
mm,
actually, what I found in my work is that a lot of women think of it as a negative thing. So I've worked with women who tell me. I remember I wrote in the book about a woman who kept describing her womanity as over. She said it's a bad thing to be overtly feminine. Like I kept hearing her saying overtly feminine. Oh, I don't want to be overtly feminine. She was talking about how she would, dull down her makeup, or wear boxy clothes, or walk a certain way, or lower her voice, or like anything feminine about her. She would dull it down because she thought it was not quite right. She didn't want to draw attention to the fact that she was a woman, because she wanted to be seen as an engineer. She wanted to be seen as an engineer, so being a woman was like a spanner in the works.
yeah.
And I would wonder when I hear that she was definitely not unique. And one woman told me that, yeah, I know that there's a difference between men and women, but I definitely don't want to walk in that difference in my professional life, because they'll eat me for breakfast.
Mm,
you know so I wonder what kind of impact it has on the way that we show up, if inside or even unconsciously we're thinking about a part of ourselves as though it's not supposed to be seen, as though
mm,
it's something wrong. There's something wrong with me being a woman in this setting. Like, how can you have that going? How can you have those thoughts going on and show up in your power? It's oxymoron.
mm,
And so I say we need to make a habit of really repowering, not empowering because we're already powerful, but really mastering the power of our humanity. And so the book goes into ideas about how we can do that. So that's one. I want to talk about one of them is respect. So remember, these habits are about, if you want to up your ability to sovereignly influence the system that you're working within. And I had to talk about respect. All the habits, there's 7 of them, and they all start with R, and they're all character building habits. So respect, I really felt compelled to write about respect, because around that time I had come back into contact with a woman who I'd coached a few years before, and I remember that whole scenario around her coaching. There was just a lack of respect within the organisation for each other. So there was a lot of backbiting, and I know the people who are listening to this can really, some of them can really understand wherever it is that they're leading. There's a lot of power struggle. There was a lot of backbiting. It was toxic culture. It was a really hard workplace, and yet there was a client of mine who really cared about making a difference. It was in education, and she really cared about the kids. At the end of the day, this was about the kids, and that, some of these kids were leaving school pregnant, or leaving school not able to read, or leaving school way too early, or just like, she really cared about the kids, so she wanted this thing to be turned around. And but she just had no respect for her fellow leaders. No respect for her fellow leaders at all. I remember part of a conversation, she was talking about the CEO of the organization. Said, she's a cold heartless bitch, and I don't think she's got a pulse. And I know that we're not shocked that people feel like that about each other in the workplace, because
Mm,
that is like how we treat each other. But what
mm,
I've learned, and what I suggest in the book, is that we don't get to influence people that we don't respect.
yeah.
We don't get to truly be part of their
Oh, there's
change
a truth
process.
bomb. Hang
Yeah,
on, I want you just let's repeat that. You don't get to influence people that you
you
don't
don't respect.
respect.
Yeah.
I need to learn that. Thank you very much. I'm just getting a tattoo with that on my arm.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, you don't have to like people to respect them. You don't have to like, I think that's what we think. You were talking earlier on about me being a Christian, you being a complete atheist, and we
Almost.
go
I
to,
describe myself as an almost atheist.
yeah, we go together because we respect each other. And
Yeah,
I think that the world that we're living in right now, where we want to influence people with our ideas, requires that we join together with people that are not like us. People that we wouldn't want to come invite home for dinner,
mm,
but that we're united in this mission to change our world somehow. And
mm,
that requires respect.
mm,
That even if I don't like your skin color, or your gender, or your sexual preferences, or your anything else about you, I'm going to look for what you bring to this mission that we're jointly connected to,
mm,
because I need you, and you need me, and together we're a power force in driving change. And so I think that we need to learn respect. That's another habit that I suggest in the book. And of course, all of these play out in professional life, in leadership, high level leadership, and at home. It
mm,
plays out.
totally. Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking about that, and I'm thinking, "Okay, home, family, outside world, community, everywhere." Yeah,
Yeah,
everywhere. That is very, very powerful. Thank you for sharing those. Very powerful.
yeah,
Now, I just also wanted to touch on, go back to inequality, because I got the feeling that initially the book didn't start out with quite such a focus on equality. And
yeah.
then what happened with George Floyd meant that I think maybe you changed the focus of it, or was that not the case?
Well, that's the thing. I think the book was so hard to write because before lockdown and George Floyd, inequality was a bit of a taboo subject. Now it's mainstream. And so it was so hard for me to write the book when I realized that the book that I was actually pregnant with was a book about how women can tackle inequality and can change the world, and close the inequality gap. I didn't feel qualified to write that book then, but I felt
I know, but
proud.
but who was more qualified
Yeah.
to, honestly, Dion, who was more qualified to write a book about inequality
Yeah.
than you?
Yeah, well, I came to realize that in the process, but I honestly didn't realize that before. And
Imposter
honestly,
syndrome.
yeah, and do you know what else? Is that there was a lot of denial about inequality before lockdown and George Floyd.
Mm,
There was a lot of denial about its even existence. So me, like little old me, trying to change the world's views around it, just felt like a mighty massive thing.
yeah, yeah.
But here's the thing: I had to be true to what I was carrying. I had to be true to the message that I was receiving. I couldn't just be flippant and write another women in leadership book. I had to write this book. And I think that this is a point that I really want to say, is that this work that I'm inviting people on, developing your habits so that you grow as an influencer and that you take off the mask and you show up more authentically. This work is really about developing the courage to show up as the real you where it really matters. And that's what really happened in the book. I It made sense when I handed in my manuscript in January, and then in March we were in lockdown, and in May we were witnessing George Floyd's murder.
So you were just ahead of the curve, weren't you?
Just
Yeah,
ahead.
and the world shifted to enable your book to be seen much more greatly, I would imagine, than
The
it was.
book made perfect sense in the
Yeah,
world that it was released into.
yeah.
But before, when I had to prepare it, it wasn't making so much sense. I was thinking that this isn't such a great idea. I just felt compelled to go with it. That's a message for somebody.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
what you are seeing in your space, in your realm, in your sphere of influence, like nobody else is saying it right now. It's not the normal thinking. What you see, what you perceive, what you know, what's your hunch, your ideas, your insights, they don't match the main discussion right now. They don't go with what people are saying.
That's me with menopause
Right. Okay, but
That's
what
me
happens
at
is
the moment.
the more you, back yourself, the more you learn to, be okay with going against the grain, bringing new ideas. Like, this is how we change our world. Like, this is how we do it. Like, the temptation to blend in, to sound like everybody else is high, but the women that are elevating as queen influencers, the women who are elevating as people who are really going to make this difference that we really need to see in our world, are going to dare to reconnect with their truest selves, develop those truest selves through the habits. They're going to find out what they really think and what they really know. They're going to develop a well thought out, carefully put together professional point of view. I call that your hook. They're going to sort out their heads, like all of this thinking about identity crisis, thinking about who you are or who you're not or who you're supposed to be. Get that straight so that you're really clear about who you're supposed to be, and then heal your heart, heal the old wounds, heal, like, all the pains and the hurts that have caused you to be a little closed off and hidden and tender and playing small. Like, that's the process, I think, that I'm inviting women on, and it's time for us.
Wow. I mean, I've had a personal coaching session here. I feel like I've taken on so much. I can keep going for another 6 months. I'm like, yep, I'm recharged.
Yeah,
I'm focused. I'm going to keep showing up,
yeah,
and just amazing, amazing, Dion. So as we wind up, just
yeah,
what would you most like to? You've already said so much wonderful stuff,
yeah.
but what would you most like to leave with the listeners?
I think you'd have to be living at the bottom of the ocean in a cave somewhere to not realize that something's up in our world. Yeah. It's shaking vigorously, and I don't think it's a bad thing. No matter what you believe in, the astronomers, the faith people, the astrologers, like, just everyone, all the wise people of the world are concurring that something new wants to come. There's a new day dawning. And it's time for us individually, as women and leaders and change makers, to think about how we are bringing our voice, our gifts, our talents, ourselves, our leadership to the bringing forth of that new day that wants to dawn. What that looks like, how it comes about, what it it accomplishes. Like, we get to decide that. And so I'm just inviting all of our brilliant midlife women that are watching this to think about that. Let's not leave it to the young folk. Let's not just leave it to somebody else, the men or the young people. Like, we are wise. We've got stuff to offer the conversation about what we're moving into. And we have to learn how to bring that real powerfully so that it lands and that it inspires buy-in in the places where that are shaping the future that is coming. So you're it, basically. And it's time to stand up. It's time to heal. It's time to get your head straight. It's time to develop your hook. And it's time to take a stand for what you believe in and use yourself, your voice, show up authentically, speak up powerfully, and shake things the hell up influentially.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, follow, and share it. Also, giving a 5-star review really helps get the word out. You'll find the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you can get my book, Magnificent Midlife, Transform Your Middle Years, Menopause, and Beyond. Make the very best of your next chapter. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.